I'm Harry Lennon, and this is Dragonheart.
Welcome to Dragonheart. Lots going on this week. We've got the Boreham Wood game to break down. We've got the Wealdstone Chesterfield game to look forward to, hopefully, and we have we're going to look back at the classic, the Wrexham classic, Birmingham versus Wrexham game. First, though, how are you, Mark and Bill?
Not too bad. Bit windswept and interesting.
Yeah, all good here.
Yeah, well, let's hope the weather stays off for Saturday because we've got a really, really important game coming ahead. But first, we're going to look back at the Boreham Wood game. This is Dragonheart.
Hi guys, I'm Dominic Vose and this is Dragonheart.
Well, Boreham Wood, a very interesting game, especially for myself as I took my 4-year-old stepson, so I didn't actually get to watch much of the game. I saw one goal, thankfully, but yeah, it was a classic performance by Wrexham, wasn't it, Mark?
Oh, I was really, really pleased with it. The thing is, it was really comfortable. And that's going to sound odd, this sort of been writing around this within the lead of this week. It's sort of, there have been a lot more memorable games in a way, home games this season, or games with memorable bits in them. This was nice because it was just a really comfortable routine battering of a good team. You know, it was a full 90-minute performance, which we've struggled to put together. And it wasn't dramatic, and we didn't need Mullen to do something crazy. We didn't need to grab a goal late on. We didn't need to survive pressure. We just were superior all over the pitch. And you know, hopefully that's because these new signings have added a little bit more to the mix, and we will start to click now. It was very satisfying, I thought. Pretty comprehensive, Bill, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm one of those sort of people. I never really know much about the opposition. I just kind of show up to watch Wrexham. I'd be the same if we were playing some of the top championship teams. I probably wouldn't know much about them. But was that a full strength Boreham Wood side, or was it yeah, really? Oh wow! So I mean,
from the team that won at Bournemouth a week earlier. So yeah, that's a proper Boreham Wood team.
So I mean, like you were saying last week, that we need to see playing Boreham Wood 3 times as an opportunity rather than a potential poor sort of run of games for us, and we've gone and faced that first test pretty well, haven't we, to be fair? Jordan Davis's goal, I mean, I'm sure we'll break it down, but wow, fair play. He's got them in his locker, isn't he?
Yeah. Does this back up the argument of the bigger the crowds, the more pressure, the harder it is to perform, Mark?
No. Next question.
Well, you know.
The long answer is no. I don't think so. I understand exactly where that question's coming from, but I don't think the size of the crowds and the results are linked myself. I think it's purely that we looked a bit more like a complete team. Now we've actually had the 3 new players in on Saturday. And we just look smooth and comfortable. Maybe this is my bias speaking here. I don't want it to be about big crowds partly because I think good professionals should want to play in front of big crowds, the bigger the better. And secondly, because if it is, we have a serious problem in terms of going up the divisions.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the case. I don't see, throw out some names. I don't see Ben Tozer and Ollie Palmer and Aaron Hayden being affected by the fact that there's 9,000 people in. Myself, I think at Wrexham, when I was a kid, I remember people saying this about Wrexham. There's one of those, I don't know if I am fascinated by this, but I'll never find out the answer. Do all fans view it this way? We always throw it away. We don't really want to get promoted. We always do badly when there's a big crowd in. We always do badly when we're on TV. We always do badly on artificial turf. These are all sort of tropes Wrexham fans say. I wonder if they're true with all fans. But certainly that one is.
I think some of them definitely are. Our dad's a Villa fan, and he always moans about Villa being on TV. So I think it's definitely there's something in it for some aspects of it. But I can't imagine many Man United fans are complaining about being on TV, are they?
Well, it'd be interesting to see from like a sports psychologist's point of view if it would actually change, if there's actually any scientific proof of big crowds and teams at our level changing the way we play, and looking at maybe looking back at maybe historical games where we've had bigger crowds at National League and how we performed. So that'd be it's interesting to look at.
I think to flip it on its head slightly, maybe the opposition haven't had the lift of playing in front of a big crowd, rather than necessarily being our players that have phased, perhaps Boreham Wood and other teams. You know, like Maidenhead the other week, they clearly revelled in that crowd situation, didn't they? Sorry to cut in, Chay, but you know, it's perhaps the opposition getting more of a lift than our players do from having a big crowd to play in front of.
And I've got to say, you've sort of taken the words out of my mouth. I was thinking a similar thing. Yeah, I mean, one of those often quoted things, Kevin Wilkin coming in as manager and saying, you know, whenever I came here with the meeting, it was our cup final. See, the two things that Wrexham fans believe that really shouldn't go together. That for some reason, Wrexham bottle it in front of big crowds, but for some reason, small clubs who aren't used to it are inspired by it. I mean, you're either scared by crowds as a footballer or you're not. I think the thing with stuff like that is human psychology is naturally going to try and explain events. That's why you have conspiracy theories, isn't it? I'm shocked by that. So let's think what really happened rather than the obvious thing. And then it's again with this, you know, you sort of, you go back to try and explain, well, why is this happening? And you sort of fit the events into it retrospectively. But I don't buy it myself personally. I think, well, if we do have players who are scared of playing in front of big crowds, then they'll need to go because we intend to go up the leagues and play in front of big crowds. But they've been recruited because they shouldn't be scared of that sort of thing. I think it's a red herring, that myself. Yeah. Good question, though, Chay. To be fair.
Yeah.
It's a question that has to be asked, doesn't it?
It has to be asked. And I know this is a bit of a simplistic term, but there's a lot of, say, UFC fighters and boxers who have always been fantastic leading up to title fights, for example. And when they hit that title fight, they never quite do it. So it would be really interesting to see. It's going to be really interesting to see the Boreham Wood game at home in the league this season to see how we play against them. Then we maybe have their number, but they're a very good side, and they're obviously, they may be on a little bit of a hangover from their big FA Cup triumphs and what have you. So yeah, it's a really good result, 3-0. And let's talk about the first goal. It was Ollie Palmer's header, wasn't it? It's exactly what we brought him in for.
Bill, before you mention about that goal, can I just say quickly, you know, said that your UFC comparisons, it is a fair one, and I know I'm being a bit silly myself. I'm generalizing by saying all professionals should be motivated, all professionals should relish a chance to play in front of the big crowd. Obviously, that's a silly mashing of all of them together and really stereotyping them. But if I could apply my argument to the UFC argument, fighters who underperform when they get their big chance could also be because they're fighting at a higher level than they've ever fought at before, perhaps. You know, so they're actually up against the very best when they fight for the title. And that is just a step up from the people they've beaten to get into that position, who, I guess, by definition, are more likely to be others on the way up. You know, good fighters on the way down, or what my dad always used to call Mexican road sweepers, when you had a boxer on the way up and you'd be given these sort of nobodies to fight.
Oh yeah, and
I think you go on, Chay. Sorry,
we are comparing apples and oranges when it comes to team sports and the UFC, for example. That was just or boxing. That was just a simple analogy in some ways, because psychology I think is a lot more prevalent in combat sports than it is football. Because, for example, let's just say Aaron Hayden has a fantastic game. He's amazing. He's unstoppable. But say, for example, Ponticelli misses 2 sitters. It's not his fault that that Wrexham have lost. You know, it's not Aaron Hayden's fault. But in MMA, for example, you could be smashing them for the full 5 rounds. You make one mistake, you get submitted. I know it was a strange comparison, but it was something I was, you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about.
I think it's a really good comparison. I think that I should emphasize, Jay, I don't want us to fall out. I like your question. I think it's a good one because it gives us something to get our teeth into. And I do think I'm simplifying things a lot. Because, for example, so I'm trying to say an elite sports person's mindset should be fearless and relishing opportunity. But then when Michael Spinks fought Mike Tyson, when Tyson was in his prime, everyone was saying then Tyson's unbeatable, but Spinks is a one man who could actually beat him. He's pumped up from a cruiserweight to a heavyweight, but he's so quick and he looks so good as a heavyweight. He might be the only man capable of beating Tyson. And he comes in the ring and the fight lasts 90 seconds and Spinks is carried out. And afterwards, Spinks admitted that watching Tyson coming in with the scary rumbling noise rather than music that he used to come in then, with no fancy clothes or anything, and a towel ripped in half with a slit in the middle over his head, with no spangly dressing gown, and a look on his face like he wanted to kill Michael Spinks. And Spinks said, as he watched that, I just thought, I want to get out of this ring as quickly as possible. And the moment Tyson hit him, he went down to make sure that he could leave in one beat. So that's an elite man. That's a bloke who won a lot of title fights as a cruiserweight, and at that point was unbeaten as a heavyweight, absolutely panicking. So you're absolutely right, and it really, and that's just one-on-one. I'm being very simplistic, aren't I? With a group of people, you'll get all sorts of dynamics. I'm just not convinced by it. Although I'll for next week, I'll do some number crunching. And I'll find results with different crowds, see what happens. I
think football's a very complex sport. You got tactics and things like that. It's a completely different sport to any one-on-one combat sport. And you've also got to rely on your other 10 teammates to put in a shift as well for you to win. Because there's been many a times that Wrexham players have played fantastic and we still end up losing 3-0. So,
and as well with football, you can play wonderfully and miss your chances. You can play wonderfully, and then the lad at the back makes one mistake and you've lost. And in some ways, it's a bit random. Now, I know all sports are a bit random, aren't they? I know you can dominate a fight and get knocked out by a lucky punch. It's obvious parallel. But then by the same token, and you know better than me, would you say that combat sports often are a bit more attritional? So that if you're dominating a fight, you're landing a lot of punches on the other person, and that will be having an effect on him. Whereas a team dominating a football match and missing lots of chances won't have an actual effect on the other team unless they feel depressed that they can't get the ball back, or maybe inspired that the other side can't take their chances. Do you see what I mean? Combat sports have a slightly more inevitable feel about them as they go on, even though there could be a lucky punch, because that domination is grinding the other person down.
Yeah, and it's 1v1, isn't it, rather than 11v11, and there's also substitutes and all sorts. That was a really interesting chat back and forth. Then I enjoyed that. I'd like to see you get the number crunching, get say our top 5 or say top 20 attendances in the National League, and see how many we've won, how many we've lost. Because that would be really interesting. We have been great this season, but we've not been burying teams.
Yeah.
And the times we've buried teams have been in the FA Trophy with smaller attendances. So very interesting.
It's interesting though. Our top 10 or 20 attendances are going to be mostly from this season, aren't they? Vast majority of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true actually.
So we'll have to look at maybe other seasons where we've got similar figures, the Grimsby Salford games, Anyway, let's get on with the Boreham Wood game.
Oh, yeah. It's about Wrexham, isn't it? I forgot. Sorry. Bill, you were going to say about Palmer's goal, I think, weren't you?
Yeah.
I feel like I've got to add something to this point, though. Like, this is just a little bit. It was 3-0, wasn't it? It was the first time that we scored more than 2 at home this season. But in fairness, is it?
Against the team of our league, yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. To put it slightly on its head, we could have scored 4 against Grimsby, but we just didn't take the chances. So it looks like our best performance on paper this season, but that's just on paper. We've had plenty of games where we could have buried teams. I think even the Torquay game, even though we ended up drawing 1-1 and we take the sucker punch and lose. We could have scored 3 or 4 in that game as well. So it just seems like this weekend it just clicked for us, really, didn't it? And when you got a left back coming on and making his debut, not very fancied from Sunderland, and goes and puts a cross in like that, can't complain at all, can you?
Yeah, well, he was really one of the stars of the show, wasn't he, Mark McFadden? What was your opinion on his performance?
I was delighted with him, to be honest with you. He gets 2 assists in the first half hour, and the nature of them pleased me. So, obviously the first one, as you say, Bill, is just a glorious cross, and that gives me hope, because if you remember, he did it again soon afterwards, and Palmer hit the outside the post. That gives me hope that, when teams are digging in and defending against us, if you got somebody who's got good quality delivery, that's hard to defend against. And when he's got the sense to know that we've got a big bloke who's strong in the air, and that he can just have a look, see where he is, and float that ball into the area for him, his area to attack, that might be a nice way to break down a team, that parks the bus, because they've still got to defend that. So that delighted me. But then the other assist is a very simple pass, but I loved it, because the other thing I've been thinking about a lot about that game is I felt you could see a raise in quality across the board. And it made me think back to Dean Saunders when he first came in. And I think he was a bit too demanding of the players, because he was used to coaching, Galatasaray and Premier League teams, and then he's expecting National League players to be the same quality. And I remember him complaining after a match, every pass just isn't quite right. Not off by much, but because the first pass is off, the second player's pass is off by a bit more, and the third player's pass is off by a bit more again. And all of a sudden, we're struggling to string passes together because players have to make more and more adjustments to receive it in the first place, and then they're playing a worse pass on next time. And he's right. And I know it's a bit silly, and I hope I'm proven right, I really liked on Saturday that we did the basics really, really well. And that McFadden pass to Jordan Davis isn't anything dramatic, but the thing is, looks up, sees Davis, firstly, plays the pass at the right time, doesn't hang on for it for too long, plays it in perfect weight, perfectly where Davis wants it. It's a beautiful first touch by Davis, but, he's actually got a player who sees his run, plays the right pass perfectly at the right time. It's a simple pass, and that allows him to take his lovely first touch and flash it in. And I just think if, we've brought in, 6 of our last 7 signings, or 7 of our last 8, I think, have either been League One or above. Well, that incremental alteration in the quality of our basic skills, if you like, as football, our technique as a team, I think hopefully means that when we move the ball around, we're starting to zip it in accurately and can sustain those passes up the pitch. Whereas, say, the Dean Saunders complaints, the more you pass forwards and get under pressure, the more you make a little mistake, and the more you're not in control of the ball. Hopefully, we've developed into a technically superior team who can pass our way through and around sides now, because our players are League One players, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not a really great deal to add to that, Mark. It was a great breakdown of what happened on Saturday, to be fair, and it was a very nice passing performance, wasn't it? We just everything just seemed to click, didn't it? And I think if we translate this FA Trophy performance to our league performances, especially at home, we're going to be a really dangerous side for the last quarter of this season, aren't we, Bill?
Yeah, and I keep banging on this drum. The teams that go on a good run towards the end of the season always, profit from it, whether that be through the playoffs or otherwise. And I think that this game, while you can't get too ahead of yourself, which I think at Dragonheart we've been accused of a few times, probably getting ahead of ourselves. It's a result and a performance that we've deserved for a long time. This season, it's been difficult to watch in patches because, like you say, Mark, those incremental little things that have been missing. I mean, I know we won the Halifax game, but that was those first 70 minutes were a perfect illustration of that. It's like we weren't necessarily doing anything poor. It was just a build-up of a lot of little poor things that you get no result from. I'm holding my breath a little bit. Let's wait and see. But it's the kind of thing that we were hoping would start to click round about now. We're in February. Like we said previously, it's go time now. This is when we need to start getting performances and results, and hopefully we can kick on from here.
I liked as well. Going back to that first goal, I forgot to say there's another aspect of it that massively impressed me, and I think it caught my eye because it happened right in front of me. Clever's movements before he received the ball was fantastic, and I think was something that we've worked on. You know, I mean, on Collier's, they'll be doing a lot of work on shape, but there'll be a lot of work as well on sort of automatic movements and creating space for other players. And it was interesting to me. McFadzean, I mean, they sort of matched us up. So they're playing, 3-4-3 really, aren't they? But they sort of matched us up. And we had, McFadzean went up the pitch, up the line, but tucked in a bit. And he went, I beg your pardon. He went up the line, gave us a bit of width. He was very high up. And so we pinned their wing back. We got a lot of players going forwards. So you got the two strikers, obviously, that's an advantage of the system. But you also had Jordan Davis getting forwards as well. And you had the right wing back up. So their back five was pinned and there was space and their midfield was quite narrow because they were covering our midfielders. And Cleworth, when Tozer got the ball in the centre circle, Cleworth saw this and he saw the angle for a pass that Tozer could make forward pass, 45-degree pass through a big yawning passing channel between the striker and the wide striker and the central striker. And so we went, and once Tozer played it in, they were all where they should be to create that overload. And Cleworth knew it. Cleworth's a clever player, and there's an element of improvisation. I think it's also structural. He knows when McFadzean's gone because he's seen him. He knows where he should be as well because they're working on those automatic movements. And so when the ball comes in, he doesn't even look to check if he's still there. He just hooks it on blind first time because he knows he's there. And that movement broke the lines, gave Tozer the chance to play the pass, to move it from knocking it around at the back to moving it to a player in space in midfield. And then Cleworth played that first time so well, immediately moves it through again. So, you know, they talk about playing through the thirds. We've got defence, midfield, crossing position in a second. And it was all down to, Cleworth's intelligence, but also that work on shape and that work on movement and that work on knowing how to automatically pin a side back and create a bit of space. And that really pleased me. I just thought that was good coaching, good execution by the players. Really, really good stuff, I thought.
Yeah, and it takes a long time to build that sort of thing as well, isn't it? It's not like, again, we talk about this, it seems to be a weekly thing now, but it's not like jumping on career mode with Wrexham, battering every team in League Two because you've bought all the best players in the Championship or whatever it is that I say that as if I don't play hours and hours of FIFA, I play hours of it, but you can't work on patterns of play overnight, can you? It takes a long time to build that sort of thing, and we'll be, regardless of where we end up next season, we'll be a lot better for having had this year to build a team. If we can keep the nucleus of this side together, we'll really benefit from having had all that work. And I think we're going to go from strength to strength. Just needs a bit of patience. Parkinson's clearly doing a very astute job in a lot of ways, and we've just got to have a bit of faith that they can push on. I know there's no points involved, but the titleometer, I think, has moved up to 3 now from 2, like it was last week. So, we've got
yeah. We've got the animation going, don't we? Come on.
yeah. Little like what's it like, on Children in Need when they got those things with the red bars going up. No, I think you've got to take a lot of confidence from a performance like that against a team that are really good, who've gone away and beaten the Championship side. How can you not get some sort of confidence boost from it?
And then the second half, we're just in comfortable control. I get a bit edgy when it's 2-0, but didn't feel edgy at all on Saturday. No, the third goal didn't come till late, but we were in control, weren't we? I don't think there was any real threat.
Yeah, we were in cruise control, no threat. We did exactly what we are meant to do, and the best thing about it was, for me, was we probably should have been doing this sort of thing a lot of times this season where we've been excellent in the first half. We should be going 2-0 up and cruising like the Woking game. You know, we did everything that from the start of the season we weren't doing seemed to click into place, and we also got that killer goal at the end. Another Aaron Hayden header. He's just awesome, isn't he? He's our best player in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't argue with you, Chay. The red Baron flying again. Sorry for stolen your line, Mark.
No, it should spread across the land, as far as I'm concerned. And what a cross by Noel Johnson as well. It wasn't. He had no angle to cross it, didn't he?
Oh, it was a beautiful cross. Textbook Aaron Hayden header. And what a great way to finish off the game and to give us a real good confidence boost against a cracking side who I think Boreham Wood could easily go up via playoffs or via being champions this year. So let's hopefully this is a great way. This could be a great kick start for our season. But at the end of the day, if we then now go and have a terrible game against Wealdstone and lose, it's all for nothing, isn't it? Because at this moment in time, league is number one for the players, the fans, and the whole club, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This double header coming up now is crucial, isn't it? The Wealdstone and Chesterfield games, get results from those, and we got some proper momentum going.
Yeah, and so talking about the Wealdstone and Chesterfield games, let's break them down. So after this, we're going to be talking about Wealdstone and Chesterfield.
Playing the music you love. This is Wrexham's Heartbeat. This is Calon FM.
On Saturday, we have a real tough game coming up away from home. Wealdstone, they caused us problems at home this season. I think actually, all things considered, considering where they are on the table, played some of the nicest football I've seen at the racecourse this season, didn't they, Mark?
I think Wealdstone on the sly are a decent team. I think I may be being wrong in saying this. I think because they've come up the same time as Kings Lynn and Weymouth, and because there was no relegation last season and we weren't that bothered about the bottom end of the table, I think maybe not just us, I think probably a lot of teams sort of lumped those teams in together a little bit. And Wealdstone are much better than Weymouth and Kings Lynn. And I was quite interested looking at their manager talking about this last week, saying that he feels that they've been low key, but they've been really good. And that sort of summed up their performance against us, where they would, all right, it's a 0-0 draw, but they're in control. First game we failed to score in all season. Nobody else has kept a clean sheet against us. They're just tidy and organised. And I think, like I say, that they're a cut above those teams down the bottom of the table. Although they're down in a low position, they're well clear of relegation. They're not going down. I mean, we said that about Maidenhead, and they're about 6 points ahead of Maidenhead. So, I think Wealdstone are a team to be respected. And he was saying, like, they've not done anything really crazily eye-catching, but they've never had a run without wins. They've never had a run of losses. They're nice and going along steady and building nicely for next season sort of team. I got a lot of time for Wealdstone.
Well, to be fair to them, they've just beat Barnet 3-1. They've just beat Yeovil 2-1. And before that, they did lose to Grimsby away from home, but they got a draw against Notts County. So none of them results are anything to scoff at all. They're a side that are in really good form. They got a young, modern manager, haven't they? And they play really nice, tidy football. So it could be a real banana skin for us this Saturday, couldn't it, Bill?
Yeah, I reckon they want some, to be honest. They'll be after. Sorry, I had to fit one in. It's a big game for them, and hopefully, the conditions won't stop us from being able to play the type of football that we like. Although I know we are a top end sort of team, I don't think tactically we completely rely on the weather. But if it is a bit wet and windy, it's always difficult for teams it's a leveler, isn't it? You know, it's difficult for teams who are higher up to show that sort of quality if there's a bit of chaos on the pitch. I'm really looking forward to it. It's actually the first long distance away game that I've been to in a very long time, obviously with COVID and various other reasons. So hopefully it'll be a nice one to come back on that 4-hour journey with 3 points.
And they're, like I said, I think they're tidy in the way they play football. They're a good club as well. I got a lot of time for them. I mean, that win they had last Saturday, well, firstly, that's a big derby game, isn't it? The Wealdstone is a North London derby. And I only found out today, it's got a hell of a lot of history behind it. It's the first ever televised fixture in the UK. 1946,
wow.
The BBC showed part of Barnet against Wealdstone live. Even obviously that was a non-league game then. That was rugby now. There were problems at the match. I'm sure you may have seen with their fans. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. With some troublemakers who were in the away end. And I think that the Wealdstone, like I said, are a club with a really good reputation. And the way they slapped them down immediately and firmly and reasserted this is a club which is inclusive. This is a club that encourages kids to come and watch. They got no place was, well, firstly, very pleasing to see. Secondly, was not at all surprising because Wealdstone are a class act. And thirdly, was very reminiscent to some of the statements that the Wrexham had to put out around the banning orders as well. And it was good to see Wealdstone just step up and say, right, these people have nothing to do with us. This does not represent this football club. Sort of tarnishing a brilliant day. And so, yeah, I'll stop saying about it now because the fact is they got a superb win in a derby. The vast majority of their fans were brilliant. And yeah, I think they're on a little bit of a bounce. I think we're gonna have a test. It's gonna be a tough game.
It's nice to see some of these smaller teams being so cooperative and so nice and so well run, because there is other teams who are very similar stature who aren't in this league as well, isn't there? We don't have to name names, but everyone can put two and two together. But yeah, all credit to Wealdstone, and it is a really real tough task. And then, is there anyone who catches your eye player wise, Mark?
I'm gonna take the coward's route and say they are a good unit and good collectively, but they do have a Mera up front who has scored a hatful of goals and seems to be really flying at the moment as well. So I think I'd probably look at him as somebody who looks to try and run the channels between our three centre backs. I mean, sometimes that can be an issue, can't it? If your centre backs get a bit spread, you can play three at the back. Can you get in between them? So I think that's something we've got to watch out for. To reiterate what we said about them being a good club, I've got to say, and I don't want to talk about the possibility about the weather with this game too much because we shouldn't, but I will raise it just to say that Wealdstone, if there's any concern, they did have their match called off in midweek because of a waterlogged pitch. If they did have any concerns, I think they would play it right and we'd be kept in touch with it. I think they're, that sort of club. They're going to be not like the Dover Notts County situation that we had in the week where, well, I mean, certainly on the surface of it, the game was called off, sort of mid-afternoon. Notts County fans obviously already on their way down. And Dover came out with what looked like a sort of attempt to grab hold of the PR, grab hold of the story, going nuts at the National League for calling the game off and attacking Notts County for pressuring the National League into calling the game off. And they got all the angry statements about I've never seen this where a bloke in an office in London has said that the game should be off and all this sort of stuff. And unfortunately for Dover, Notts County responded by saying, well, none of this is true. We're desperate to play the game. We're already down here. We paid for the hotel. And we phoned up Dover after the pitch inspection by the referee and were told the game was on. And then we're told a couple of hours later that the referee had called the game off. So they wanted to know, how did Dover tell them the game was on when the referee appears to have called it off? yeah, we hopefully we'll have no problem anyway with the weather on Saturday, but I'm quite sure Wealdstone won't be doing that to us. And we've already been to Dover this season, so I'm happy.
Well, exactly. Without doubt, though, the conditions are going to be hostile weather-wise, aren't they?
Yeah,
without doubt. That's the whether the game's playing or not, which I'm pretty confident it will be played, hopefully. But it will that benefit us as a side? Do you think the way we play? Do you think hostile conditions could actually benefit us rather than be detriment?
It's interesting when a team that is of better quality play more, I suppose, attritional football against a team that who are lower, who have a lower quality in inverted commas, who are trying to play nice, tidy, neat football. That's an interesting situation anyway. And I know I said that it was a leveler earlier, but maybe these are the sort of circumstances where our sort of style of play comes into comes good for us, and it might not be as much of a problem as it usually would be. I don't know what your thoughts are, Mark, tactically.
I mean, it depends, I suppose, what type of bad weather do you get? Maybe it's going to be all right. My gut feeling is to agree with your first sentiments that, as you put it very nicely, a bit of chaos in the game suits the underdog. And I mean, look at last weekend, Burnley against Liverpool. Liverpool won, could easily have lost. And I think part of that at least was driving rain, strong winds meant that, it was harder to impose your skills on the game and easier for big lads to win headers, if you like. Well, it depends, doesn't it? I mean, sorry.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, we've got a Ben Tozer throw-in with wind could cause all sorts of problems. We've got people like Aaron Hayden. Yeah. We've got who can score headers. We've got Ollie Palmer who can score headers. We've got Jordan Davis who can whip balls in really nicely. So I think the way we play football could, with bad conditions, it is a roll of dice, could actually be really beneficial as well. So, look at it. Look at the Aldershot game last time with poor conditions. We were 2-0 up at half time. So I'm not I still think that.
I still think it is a bit of a leveler, but just to sort of clarify, I think in this situation, we have got a better tactics for that leveling to be less rather than it being a huge, like Liverpool plays such fantastic football and Burnley are like an elite non-league team, aren't they, in the way that they play, like the super elite non-league team. And so maybe I'm doing Burnley down a little bit there, but we are playing that very defensive structured football, but we whip crosses in. We've, like Chase just said, we've Ben Tozer is always putting the balls in there. Perhaps that suits us. Maybe I'm just being optimistic.
If we can control the chaos on the pitch, we could score many goals on Saturday. I personally think.
I know it's
chaos control.
Ridiculous. Yeah. I know it sounds ridiculous, but with the players we have, the quality, and as I said, we don't play like a Liverpool or like a Pep Guardiola's Barcelona on the floor tiki-taka. We play quite direct football. I think poor conditions could suit us.
We need to go down there regardless of the conditions and raid 3 points, don't we?
Oh,
the Wealdstone Raiders.
Very nice. I don't think they're as direct as you guys think. I think we can go direct, and that's often when we look bad. I think I think passing quite quickly through the thirds we're looking to do. And I think otherwise, as Parkinson said, he thinks we look better when we keep possession. I think that when we start knocking long balls, it's because people are starting to panic a bit because things aren't working.
But we've got the ability to go direct, which could suit horrible, rainy, windy conditions, couldn't it, as well? So it's not like we are Liverpool or Man City. We can play really versatile. We can play different types of football, if you know what I mean.
Yes,
so the Wealdstone game should be a really, really interesting match.
If we're chasing a game and it's windy, it's 0-0, and we're desperate to win, we can stick Ollie Palmer and Kwame Thomas both on and just throw that ball in there, can't we? And just hope for something to stick.
We're saying all this, but it's starting to sound like the Torquay game away. we ended up doing that.
Yeah,
you know?
true.
I'm a little
true,
wary
true.
of this. Right?
Torquay are a very good side, though, aren't they? To be fair, I know they're not quite having the season that they've had previously.
They're all right. Are they?
You've also got the Aldershot game that got called off before half time. We were 2 up with poor conditions as well. So,
and the one we won out, the conditions weren't great then.
So it balanced itself out. So, what I want to see is Ben Tozer take a throw in and it go over the stands.
I want him to take a throw in and just never comes down. And everyone just stands there. Oh, okay. You like when seagulls just hover? I just want that to happen.
So if we're 5-0 up, that's what I want Ben Tozer to do, is just see if he can throw a ball over the stands with the wind. That would be interesting. That would be hilarious. And
would you get booked for time wasting, right? If it was like injury time and you get an attack in the throw-in and Tozer just goes and with the wind behind him, throws it over the stand behind the goal, which, let's be honest, he would be able to do, especially with the wind behind him, because, you know, a small non-league stand. I mean, he has thrown it into play. He's then thrown it straight out of play again, but it's not like a foul throw or anything. It's a goal kick. Oh, you know what? I want to ask the referee that now.
we need to see if we could get a National League referee on the show. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Oh God, yeah. That'd be us in court, wouldn't it? But I doubt if many National League referees could operate Zoom by the look of them. Surprised if many of them could open their front doors when they get home.
Still got Nokia phones, like the old brick Nokia phones, probably. But anyway, moving on from that. Hopefully, a positive result comes Saturday, and then Tuesday. It's got to be one of the biggest games of the season, isn't it, for Wrexham. Chesterfield away Tuesday night. It's a good, and I think it's a good time to play him too.
Hope so. No Mullen, no Shamanga.
They're coming off 2 draws.
New manager.
1 stock, but new manager. It should be a really. Hopefully, it's a good time to play him, but they are a real quality side, aren't they, Mark?
Oh, absolutely. The Shamanga picking up a horrible injury like that is a hell of a blow to them. And even though obviously I want us to finish above them, nobody would want that to happen to the guy. No. And we obviously pass our best wishes on to him and hope he can recover. But anyone would miss a player who's on that sort of form. And it feels like, it feels like a turning point for their season, doesn't it? They've had the problems at management level, which now have been, I don't want to say resolved. Certainly, they found a solution to it. Then we need to see if Cook can actually succeed as manager a second time there. They've lost a key player. They've had a bit of a wobble from being top of the league to wobbling a bit. It'd be interesting to see, they're either going to kick on from that. They're going to look back and I think and say either we kicked on from this, got through it, or the wobble continues and we paid for it, I suspect. So we need to be positive, get there and give them an extra push if they're wobbling.
I don't think it's a make or break situation for either team, but I think if either of us is successful at the end, if we were to win this game, it'd be the result that both sides would look back at and go, yeah, that was a positive turning point for us. That was like sort of centerpiece result. I think it could be a real springboard for us if we go and get 6 points this week. Really do. I think actually that there's almost as bit. All right, here's one for you. If we get 4 points, but we draw against Wealdstone and we beat Chesterfield, is that a better scenario than the other way round? In terms of momentum, at least. I know points, obviously, it's no different, but you were expected to beat Wealdstone.
I don't want 4, I want 6.
Of course, no, same here. I'm just saying if we're in a scenario where it's 4, because 4 is an acceptable amount for both of those games, really, but you'd say, right, Wealdstone's a must-win in Chesterfield, you can afford a draw. But if it's the other way around, does the momentum shift a bit towards us? Is it a bit more like a 6-pointer, so to speak?
I think 6 points is... the acceptable mark for the next 2 games.
Fighting words, then, Chay.
I like the idea of well, no, okay. I better rephrase that. I was going to say I like the idea, your 4 points idea. I don't. I like Jay's 6 points idea. However, having said that, I mean, can you imagine how bouncing the racecourse would be the next Saturday against Aldershot if we beat Chesterfield away? It's going to be packed out. There's going to be so much optimism. And there's a team that we would expect to go at in a home game, and we could build momentum there. So I would rather have Chay is right. I want 6 points from these games. But if it was 4, I think I agree. I think that if we've got to draw one and win one, let's beat Chesterfield. It'll knock points off them, and it'll tee us up then for hopefully a good go at Aldershot. Then we've got Kings Lynn at home. Then we've got Boreham Wood at home. 3 home games in a row. So beat Chesterfield and then go into 3 home games, the first 2 of which you'd be very disappointed if we drop points in. And then a massive Boreham Wood game. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Myself?
Yeah, hypothetically, if we draw and then beat Chesterfield, yeah, it's not bad. Then we'll be kicking ourselves come the end of the season when we've missed out on 2nd or 3rd because we haven't beat teams like Wealdstone this season and we haven't beat teams like Maidenhead this season. So for me, we just need to beat them both, and it's as simple as that. I know that's not how it works, but if we really want to kick on this season, we've got the quality. We're doing everything right off the pitch. I think 3 points every game is the most acceptable amount, and I don't think we should be settling for any less.
I do agree. Absolutely.
It's a bit brutal because I know Chesterfield are a fantastic side, but I think with them not having Shamanga on the pitch, who has been their talisman and been the best striker in the league this season, and with the new manager thing, it could be a fantastic time to play him.
I hope so. I do hope so. Yeah. I'm just looking at Wilson's home results. I mean, they drew Notts County. They only lost by 1 goal against Chesterfield. They beat Grimsby. A lot of teams have dropped points at their place. The top end teams. Solihull Moors drew there. I don't think it'd be the worst results for us, but please don't get me wrong. I want us to win it. But I think Bill's got an interesting point there. If you offered me a win at there or a win at Chesterfield, I'll take Chesterfield to hurt them.
Yeah, I think a Chesterfield win away would be a real statement, wouldn't it? But 4 points is good. I'd be happy with 4 points, even if it was a draw at Chesterfield as well. To be fair, and I still think the racecourse would be bouncing going into Aldershot, knowing that we've got 3 good results on the bounce, including the FA Trophy. But I think why not just go for all 6? I think we're capable of it, 100%.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so after this, we're going to be talking about the legendary game that was Wrexham v Birmingham City in the.
I'm Aaron Hayden, and this is Dragonheart.
Well, it really was a Wrexham classic, that Wrexham versus Birmingham. FA Cup 3rd round, was it? 25 years ago, last Tuesday.
5th round.
5th round. Oh yeah. Well, I stand corrected. As is quite evident, it was quite clearly before my time, Mark. So for someone like myself, paint a picture about where Wrexham were at the time, where Birmingham were at the time, and why it's such a significant result.
Absolutely. I will first say it wasn't before Bill's time, and how shocking that you should stereotype the old man to talk about the past. And
well, I was only 7, Mark. So I actually remember before you go on to, because you've obviously got much better memories to talk about with me. I remember being on B&Q Roundabout. Oh yeah. On B&Q Roundabout with the radio on, and like I mentioned earlier, my dad's a Villa fan, so when the result came in, it was almost like a double bonus for him. Birmingham City had lost 3-1, and it was to Wrexham. Perfect. And it was a really significant result, wasn't it? Really, I think a lot of football were talking about it even back then.
Oh, it It was massive. I mean, the context, Jay, is that Birmingham were up at the top end of the championship and were in a very optimistic place. In fact, the next Monday, they were to be floated in the stock market. And so it was a big deal that Trevor Francis made the massive mistake in this pre-match press conference. Obviously, he'd been told by the club, be optimistic, build it all up, because we want people to be jumping in and buying those shares on Monday. So the fact that we're at home to Wrexham, we got a cup run on, that should be an incentive. But he actually said the stupid words of we're at home to a lower division team, so we should be in the quarterfinals of the cup after the weekend. And that came back to bite him pretty badly. It was a very good Wrexham team. It had all your classic favourites: Brian Carey, Tony Humes, Andy Marriott in goal, Phil Hardy, Gareth Owen, Carl Connolly. It was after Bennett left, although actually Bennett would come back for the quarter-final. Peter Ward, Martin Chalk, Steve Watkin, and of course, maybe the person most associated with it, Brian Hughes, who had a brilliant season for us, looked a real class act, and was outstanding in that match, scored one of the goals, and ended up moving to Birmingham. I wonder how he caught their eye.
He got the first goal of the game, didn't he? If I remember right, looking at the highlights, I think Birmingham went 1-0 up as well, didn't they?
That's right, Steve Bruce.
Wow.
Corner. So we started the game very well, and frankly looked a better side. And then Bruce from a corner, not what you'd expect, not a Fergie time Steve Bruce goal, but it coming back out to him and then really smashing a cracking hit from the edge of the area. And we didn't deserve it. And I'm sure you've seen on those highlights, Chay, that the Wrexham fans in the away end, I mean, absolutely remarkable following, wasn't it? But then in the second half, Wrexham went at him. And the scenes behind that goal. So Hughes' goal is a good one, isn't it? He controls his header quite well, doesn't he, to get there?
Yeah. It was a beautifully goal and a lovely cross as well, wasn't it? And just looking at the atmosphere, it looked really hostile as well from the Wrexham fans. It was really that amazing, memorable day out, which I think, as I said in the past, I've never really been lucky enough to see any memorable FA Cup moments with Wrexham, and it does make me rather jealous when I go back and I look at the highlights of the Arsenal game, the Middlesbrough game, the Ipswich game, the Birmingham game. I'm like, hopefully soon we will get a taste of that ourselves.
Exactly, it'd be wonderful, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah.
The support throughout was brilliant in that draw. So third round, we drew at home to West Ham, and then the replay at Upton Park, terrific support from Wrexham. And then the next game was a Tuesday night game against Peterborough, at Peterborough. And again, the away end absolutely packed out, a real memorable sort of journey down with all the loads of Wrexham fans, thousands of Wrexham fans going. And then this game again. And I remember it being a very vociferous atmosphere. Birmingham, I always feel it's a bit of a raw, sort of old-fashioned atmosphere. The fans feel a bit edgy, to be honest with you. And I was commentating on it for Marchesound, and I was very grateful of the fact there was a weird sort of false roof in front of the press box, because we went ahead and with Tony Humes' goal, and then they had Paul Devlin sent off, and it happened right in front of me. It was a shocking foul on Martin Chalk. He went in, studs up, jammed him into his knee. Absolute shocker. The referee was Martin Bodden, who was one of the top refs, who I always felt was much too soft with players. He seemed to not give cards very often, and he gave a straight red straight away. There's no doubt in his mind, the bloke who let people off, that this was a bad challenge. I called it as it was, and a load of Birmingham fans right in front of me turned around and started screaming all sorts of threats at me. And I thought, thank goodness for this weird roof thing, because they can't actually get to me, because they weren't thrilled, to be honest with you. But it just meant I made more noise when we scored the third.
And who scored the third again? I completely forgot. I completely lost my memory. Who was it again, Mark?
It's Carl Connolly.
Of course, yeah, Carl Connolly. And what minute of the game was that?
Well, I mean, it's late on. Birmingham are taking risks. and he scores in the last minute of the 90. So we've been leading since the 61st minute and looking pretty comfortable, to be fair. I don't recall us really being all that pressured by it. And then, he scores. And as you've seen, it's a wonderful sort of, they're pushing forwards. We hit them on the counter goal. We've Connolly charging through the middle. And then that brilliant sort of, if you're going to get a goal in a situation like that, the ball rolling, agonising towards the goal and thinking, it's going to go in, and being able to relish it. Oh, that was a beautiful feeling.
I love that. I love that sort of goal, and you see the ball trickling in, and you just see all the Wrexham away fans just like sort of bobbing, waiting for it to go in, and then it finally hits the net, and it.
Well, 5 years earlier, Lee Jones did the same at West Ham to get us a 2-2 draw in the cup, and I was bang level with the goal line, and it was terrifying because he was 1-on-1 with McCloskey, the goalkeeper. He poked it past him. And from what I was seeing, I could see that he'd knocked it past McCloskey and the keeper wasn't going to get back to it. I could also see that Lee Jones was running after it, was not going to get there in time. And I couldn't tell if it was going to go in, hit the post, go wide. I remember those couple of seconds really felt like a long time, but it was perfect, right in the bottom corner. I don't know. And then after the game at Birmingham, it was funny. It was deeply funny. Because, of course, I'd done the commentary and then I went to the press conference. And the press conference, of course, Trevor Francis, we're in the draw for the quarterfinals. Well, you can imagine what sort of questions he was fielding. Because we'd outplayed them. It was a real passing team, Brian Flynn's team then. And we outplayed them. And the Birmingham press, who the day before had been told by him, don't worry, lads, this will be a walkover, really ripped into him. Did you take them too easily? They were clearly a better team than us. They looked like a championship team, not us. And they destroyed him. It was really ferocious. You don't usually see that with club managers, like national managers. The reporters haven't got a, if the Welsh FA ban you, that doesn't matter because you're a Cardiff reporter or a Wrexham reporter. So generally, the national managers get a hard time with it, whereas the club managers generally are getting interviewed by their own local paper, and the journalists a bit more careful often. But they tore him. They tore him to pieces. And then after the game, two things stuck in my head was Devlin, who got sent off. I think we were better anyway, but it didn't help. And Devlin is supposed to be a sort of dyed-in-the-wool Birmingham fan, isn't he? And a real sort of, Birmingham through and through. And I always remember, I know this is really unfair, seeing him leaving, laughing his head off with his mates, thinking, he doesn't look like the man who just got sent off in an embarrassing cup tie for the team that he loves, but all right. But then seeing Steve Bruce, and I always felt a bit sympathetic for Steve Bruce after this. Bruce came out and he looked gutted. He looked like he was thinking, the end of my career. This was a chance maybe to win the cup or get to another cup final. And it's gone. And also maybe just he was a good professional. And he looked heartbroken. And I remember he was walking past me. And I didn't, I can't, obviously, Steve Bruce and I do not have any relationship, except that I quite like Murder, She Wrote, and he looks a bit like Angela Lansbury. But we had a little moment. We made eye contact because he looked so sad and I felt sorry for him. And we had a little moment where I just looked at him and sort of like give him a sympathetic sort of eyebrows, and he just sort of nodded and walked past. And I thought, oh, poor man, bless him. That's why I felt sorry for him when Newcastle sacked him.
But yeah, it's really nice listening to the stories and reading about the game, and it's a real iconic one. I think sometimes gets forgotten about, isn't it? We talk about the Arsenal game a lot, because the Arsenal game's a very pivotal, important part of our history. But it's so nice to hear other people's stories about games of the past that are obviously fond in many people's memories, but don't get as talked about as the Arsenal game. So yeah, that is a real Wrexham classic, that game. And
the odd thing is, of course, that the quarterfinals, I'm pretty sure the quarterfinals never happened. I think just abandoned the competition at that point. I'm sure we didn't play in I'm sure we didn't play
Yeah,
It
it
just
was-
said,
No, it didn't happen.
Wrexham have hammered Birmingham. This is as good as football. Football is completed now. It won't get any better. We'll just abandon this competition. I'm
we just
pretty
give
sure.
we give the other team a bye, didn't we?
Yeah, something like that, wasn't it? Definitely.
But yeah, that's over and done with now. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. It's been a cracking podcast, and safe journeys to everyone traveling down to Wealdstone. Me and Bill will be there, including the away end. I'm really looking forward to that. So thanks to Mark, thanks to Bill. Please follow us all follow Dragonheart on Twitter and Instagram. Follow the official Wrexham AFC Twitter, YouTube, and tune into Wrexham Player on Saturday, where there'll be commentary. So yeah, this is Dragonheart.